The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Desi. I'm the Marketing Communications Manager here at Toon. There's lots of you on this webinar today, which is going to be really a great way to see how to start a rig, how to do a simple rig in cutout animation using Harmony Essentials. Really, Harmony Essentials is the basic package offered to a Harmony user, an animator in the industry. And really, this is just to get your feet wet, to understand, you know, the ins and outs of how to do this in Harmony Essentials. You know, all the major studios around the world use our software. They use Harmony Premium in a studio setting to create these fantastic rigs. And we're going to talk about really just how to get started, how to do a really simple one. And then we're going to walk you through the process. And the perfect person to really explain this to you in a detailed manner is our dear friend, Tony Ross. Tony Ross has been a friend of Toon Boom for many years now. He has taught endless amount of classes. He's done a lot of stuff on our portals. He's trained a lot of people in the United States and around the world for Toon Boom, and he is a master teacher. He's going to go through the ins and outs of the software, and you can ask him any questions you want towards the end of the webinar. He'll participate and be able to answer your questions. This is an interactive webinar. He'll start off the webinar now, and he's going to go through his examples and his lesson plan. And towards the end of the webinar, probably 35 minutes from now, you can ask any questions you have. If you start to have any issues with the sound or the quality of the picture, just let me know. There's a field on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar page. And what happens is in that question section, you can write in any question you have, and I'll read it back to Tony, and Tony will give you an answer. This webinar won't last more than an hour, and we really thank you for being with us today. And Tony's going to kick off this series of webinars we're doing in Harmony, just as an instructional tool for you guys. Also, just so you know, this webinar is being recorded, so what will happen is in a few days from now, you can always get it on our website at toonboom.com/webinars, and you can rewatch it and follow along with Tony's coursework. So without any further interruptions or any longer introductions, I'm introducing Tony, and it's all up to you now.
Thanks, Desi. I really appreciate it. My name is Tony Ross from TonyTeach.com, and what I wanted to show you all today is basically creating a simple rig, a simple turnaround rig in Harmony Essentials. So let me do a quick little jump back to the thing here. So basically, as Desi had already said, 9 times out of 10, if you hear anyone saying that, oh yes, our production is using Toon Boom Harmony, they are probably talking about Harmony Premium. I mean, it is very powerful. It's doing almost anything that you see on Fox Animation, whether you're talking about Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, or anything like that. A lot of Disney shows are using Harmony Premium. So it may come to you and you're thinking, well, why in the world would you want to use that software? Why would you want to use Essentials when you have Premium at your disposal? And what I want to kind of dispel is a couple of things here. It's like, this is kind of a very simple thing because Essentials, yes, doesn't have a node view. It doesn't have curve deformers, which is like the most awesome thing ever in Harmony Premium. There's no particle system. So what does Harmony Essentials have? And this is the way that I look at this. To the best of my knowledge, there is no production that's actually using Harmony Essentials. That being said, there are several productions that have or are still using Adobe Animate or Adobe Flash. Now, in my humble opinion, Harmony Essentials, which is the entry point to Toon Boom software, still blows out of the water anything that Flash or Animate can do. That's just my opinion, and I'm going to show you some of those things in this particular webinar. All right, so my next little slide. Okay, so what's in this webinar? Why would we ever use essentials? I think we just kind of covered that. I'm going to try to keep it very simple. And I'm going to build a simple rig in essentials. You can kind of see her in the background there. And last but not least, I am going to bring you all up to speed on what we're working on. We're going to be releasing a full course on doing simple rigs and Harmony Essentials. And just want to let you know, I'll be bugging you about that later. So if you're thinking, hey, are you going to be trying to sell us something? Not necessarily, but if you want to get it, that's cool. Otherwise, we're going to do some value packed information starting now. All right, I'm going to jump into I have two different Harmony Essentials opened up right now. Um, I have Harmony 14 open so I can show you what all we're going to do. So if you take a look at our little character here, I want to, for a minute, kind of going to scrub my playhead. So typically, if you are familiar with my work, a lot of times I would do. We had like a little pepper rig that you could get, and it was just a 3/4 uh, uh, little rig that we did, and we designed that so it could be used in Harmony Essentials, Advanced, or in Premium. And what we kept looking at is like, okay, well, can we actually do a turnaround? How would we make that work? So what we decided to do is go ahead and build this out. I'm going to turn her arms off for a moment just to show you something. This is the completed rig that we set up. So we actually have her, she's actually able to bend, and I can even come over here, bend her forward. All right. And again, this is not in um, premium or advanced. If you look up top, I am using Harmony Essentials. So this is all this is pretty much what we're going to be doing in a moment. And I'm going to jump over to, let's see. All right. I'm going to now jump into, I had Harmony 14 open. So now this is Harmony 15. And what I'm going to do is bit by bit put this together, because right now it is not together. It's kind of the only thing that's actually showing are the drawing substitutions. By the way, quick shout out to my good friend and business partner, Mr. Chris Cartledge. Did Tony draw this? No. 9 times out of 10, if you see something on the Tony Cheat site, it's actually drawn by Chris. He has another, I think he's got a webinar coming up later, I think in June. He'll be showing
Yeah.
off some cool. He'll be showing his drawing expertise. All right. So what I want to do here, the first thing we're going to do is I need to set my preferences. So I'm going to go up to Harmony Essentials, come down to Preferences. If you're on a PC, you would go to Edit and you'd find Preferences there. And I want to show you, if you're familiar with working with Harmony Premium, this tab list is a lot longer. Okay. I want to set up a few things here under the General tab. One, I do want to use stop motion keyframes, which basically means I can set my keys and they're not going to have any kind of interpolation, tweening happening in between my keyframes unless I tell it to. And we may have time for a little bit of animation, I don't know. I'll probably just have time enough to rig. But I'll go ahead and click on a separate position for my pegs. The main thing, this is a pretty important one, focus on mouse enter. And this is talking about the screen, my workspace here. Whenever my cursor is in the camera view, it should make the camera active. When it's in the timeline view, it should make the timeline view active. All right. Adding keyframes at the beginning and end. Let's see. And I don't want to extend the exposure. I'm going to turn both of those off. And let's see. Camera's fine, exposure sheet is fine. Drawing, I do want a brush size cursor. Any type of cleanup I have to do, which I don't think I have to do much of anything, but having a brush size cursor helps me figure out what line weight I may need to actually go in and clean up something on. And I think that's it. Now, one thing I still do this to this day if you are setting up your preferences, make sure you go ahead and hit return or click on OK and not just close out the window, because it won't set unless you do. All right, so our preferences are done. Now, for the fun part, let's start rebuilding this. So the way that cutout characters work is, I'm going to zoom in here, I'm just using my scroll wheel. The way that cutout characters work is each individual part is on its own layer. Okay, it's like torso. And if you note, for instance, we usually would do like the eyes and everything on a different layer. We're keeping it very simple today. All right, so what I'm going to do here is take a look at a few things. The legs, arms. If you notice, we're doing like not right and left, but it's kind of F and B. It's kind of front and back. And the main reason we're doing that is because we're going to end up flipping her around anyway, so left and right won't necessarily make as much sense. Now, these drawings are set up in different drawing substitutions. So she's kind of turning there. Her arms don't make any sense right now, but got that set up. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and adjust my drawing pivot. So if you can look in the dead, pretty much, I've got my transform tools selected right now. So all of these are on their default where the pivot is. For instance, if I try to move this arm right now, it's doing something crazy because the pivot point is dead center. So what I want to do is go through the entire thing and set all my pivots. I'm going to use my rotate tool. Now, if you're used to working in Harmony Premium, you have either a simple drawing pivot, which would be over here in Tools, or you have the Rotate tool. So this is one of those things of where you're using, I'm working within the limitations of Essentials and realizing I'm only going to have one pivot point, so I can't vary where the drawing pivots are going to be. And when I say vary, I'm talking about like in the different drawings where that's going to be. The different drawing substitutions. So it's just going to be set for each one. So for the mouth, I'm going to set this about dead center. The head, and again, this is pretty simple. I'm going to probably place that around her chin because we didn't actually give her a separate neck. Torso, I'm going to solo this for a moment so you can see this. The torso, we actually placed the neck here. This is just one solid piece. I'm going to set my pivot point right at the base here. All right. And the legs, I'm using a solo mode because it makes it a lot easier, especially if where the skirt is actually coming over the legs, so I'm not going to be able to see them correctly. All right, and I'm going down to the next leg and setting these pivots. Now the arms are quite interesting. There are several ways of hiding where you're connecting something. The way that these were designed, you see this hard line on the sides here, but then it's just the skin color here, and that way it makes sense for the hands. So when the hands come in there, pivot point for the hand, let's go here. All right. And the other arm, whoops, make sure I'm on the right layer. This is the fun part when you're actually clicking on solo and fun stuff like that. And the pivot points, in case another way of looking at this is think of like a thumbtack. Let's see, make sure I'm doing this right. Think of like a thumbtack being placed in a piece of paper. And wherever you place that tack, that's where the paper is going to spin around. Another way of looking at puppeted animation is like Halloween decorations. There's these paper skeletons that are jointed together, and that's a neat way of thinking about how this is going to work. The hair. Let's see. I'm going to actually place the pivot point for the hair up here. Now, this is the back of the hair because our character has this nice little haircut here, and if I click, if I turn it off, she's got this nice little short here, but she is going to have hair in the back. So in theory, we could actually do little fun things like this if she's turning her head. Okay, so I'm going to just go back through here and make sure all of my pivots are in their right place, because I did do a few little errors. There's one. Okay, the legs. I missed a couple of those. All right, torso. Head's good, and the mouth. All right. All right, so we have all of those set up. And the next thing I want to talk about is we're going to do a little bit of parenting here. And particular, I want, if you notice, I have my animate button turned off. Two different schools of thought. Because I'm a trainer and I also do a lot of little freelance work with some small businesses doing animation, I will sometimes have my animation button turned off when I'm building things, and then once I'm animating, I'll turn it back on. So right now I have this off, and I want to set up exactly where, excuse me, I want to have this set so whenever I move the head, the hair, the back hair is going to move along with that. So to do that, I'm going to take this hair here. I'm going to move this up, just kind of drag this up. All right. Now, if you're looking layer-wise, all of a sudden, this is above the torso. All right. We'll worry about that in a moment. But what I want to do right now is do some basic parenting. So I'm going to click the hair and move this right under the head. Okay. And now if I click on the head, you can kind of see this is like indented now. If I click on the head and try to move it now, that moves along with it. Let's see, I think we need to bring the mouth in there as well. So I'm just going to drag that in. And a couple things here. One, the mouth disappeared. And of course, the hair is in front of the body. What I'm about to do is called nudging. Now, if we were in another program that shall remain nameless, if we're in Adobe's program, we won't use the F word right now. So if we're in that program, the bottom line is we'd have to do all these crazy things. But what I want to do right now is called nudging. Now, a couple of things. This is something I even got stumped on initially. The reason that we set up focus on mouse enter, if you look at where my cursor is, there's this thin red line around the camera view. All right. Now, if I move my cursor down to the timeline, that thin red line is around the timeline. So that is focus on mouse enter. To work with nudging, two things have to happen. One, my cursor should be in the camera view, and two, I should be on the transform tool. All right. Now, right now I have my animate tool. I have my animate button turned off. Later, we're going to be doing some nudging with the animate button turned on, but these I kind of want permanent for now. So what I'm going to do is move things forward on the Z-axis. You can move things up and down as far as, let's say up and down is Y. You can remember that because the Y has that little up and down thingy on it. And X goes left to right. But we can also move things forward and backward. So I have the mouse selected, and on my keyboard, I've got my little keyboard showing their actions there. I'm going to hold down my Option key, Alt on PC, and press my down arrow once. Now, the way I want you to think about this is we're actually moving this forward. So the down arrow, think of it as in it's pointing toward you. So you're bringing this toward you. I'm going to press the down arrow once, and I'm going to zoom in here. Now the mouth is there. Okay, so we pulled that forward. Thing with the hair, the back of the hair here, we don't need that forward, because actually, let me see if I can show you this. If I do it forward, it's in front of everything. That's not what we need. I'm going to do that back. Let's do Command Z. I'm going to do Option, and I'm going to press the up arrow, or the arrow that's pointing away from me. So I'll do that once. Okay. And if you look, we haven't changed anything of where the layers are, but we do have this working now. And the head can move together with the mouth and the back hair, so she's having a great time. All right, looks good. Now, let's see, the next thing we need to do, we've got our nudging done. Now we're going to do a little bit of deformer work. So we have, let's see, in Harmony Essentials, you actually do have deformers, but you do not have the curve or envelope deformer. You only have the bone deformer and the game bone deformer. So I'm going to come up here to my rigging tool. And I think one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to mess with the torso. So I'm going to click on the rigging tool. And I think I do want to solo the torso so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to click right at the base of the torso here. And I'm going to click right around the middle. This is kind of where I want the bend to happen. And I'm going to click once up by the neck. Okay. So when you're using the rigging tool, it's everything's in red. It's letting you know you're just kind of working on this. This isn't ready to animate just yet. So what I want to do is I can adjust where that center is. I think it's fine where it is. But this circle here is called the articulator. Now, by default, it usually says, okay, well, let's keep this it at least needs to touch the edges of whatever you're trying to distort. Okay. I'm not done yet, but I do want to show you this. To see what this looks like, I'm going to go down to my transform tool. And instantly this is kind of green and yellow, letting me know I can animate with it. So it's kind of okay, but it's not doing what I want it to do. All right, so I'm going to go back to my rigging mode. Everything's in red, lets me know it's rigging. I'm going to make the articulator a lot larger. Okay, and it's basically saying it's going to distort this whole area. So now, when I go back to transform, this works a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to unsolo that. And right now, this is great, but it'd be kind of cool if her head came along for the trip. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag the head right under here. And this is going to be probably broken, but we'll see in a second. The problem is, if you look at the back of her hair, it's starting to do this weird little distortions. Okay. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen. So what I want to do is something called a kinematic output. And if you were in Premium, you'd be adding that in the node view. I'm going to come over here, just click on this plus sign, come down and add a kinematic output. So that is in the head. And so now, if I move this, the hair is no longer distorting. Okay, so short for a short definition for kinematic output, it says, hey, yeah, I know you're being distorted, but I don't want you to distort these things that are under this little kinematic output. All right, now I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup work because instead of this being called just bone, I normally type in BN, and what bone is that? That's for the torso. Kinematic output, I'm going to do KO, and that's for the head. All right, so we'll go ahead and collapse that. All right, now let's do our legs. We're going to actually add a deformer there. Let's go back to my rigging tool, and it's still showing the old deformer we did. I'm going to click on this little box here, this little circle, an X, and it's saying I only want to show the deformer for the selected area. All right, so I'm going to turn off every other layer. I'm going to solo for a second. Click here at the top, and where is the knee going to go? Probably right where that little knee line is, and then right down here to the shoes. Now, if you remember the articulator before, we actually made it much larger. For the leg, I do want this to be pretty close because when I go to transform, let's take a look. That looks pretty good. All right. And this is going to be a bone, BN, for leg F. Let's unsolo that. All right, and we'll now go to leg B. Let's solo this for a second so we can see what we're doing. So clicking once at where the hip would be, once where the knee is, and right above the foot. Now, if we're doing something a little more complex, we could actually have maybe swapping out feet or something like that. But again, we're doing a really simple rig here. So you'll see how we're going to do a little cheat. Okay, so this is going to be bone, leg, let's see, B. All right, keep doing that. There we go. All right, so the arms, I do want to bring that out. Let's go up here to our rig. And we'll do once at the shoulder, once about where the elbow would be. Right down here at the end. I'm going to tighten the articulator a little bit. All right. And let's turn everything back on. The hand, I'm going to actually move this under that bone articulator as well. Or excuse me, under those bones. So, okay, this is arm F. So this is going to be B in arm underscore F. All right. Now, by the way, these are just, this is not like an industry standard little thing I'm doing. This is just my notes. I like little clean lines, so I like saying bone. If I were using premium and had curved deformers, I think I type in CRV. Envelope, I use ENV. But that's just my notes. So what I want to do, let's see, let's check and make sure we did this okay. Let's bring this up. I think we have the hand going with it. Great. Her hand is a little backwards. That's okay. All right. Now the next arm, we'll go ahead and grab another one. Okay, do you need to actually see what I'm doing there? Thank you. All right, and again, I'm shrinking the articulator. If we were doing a rubber hose type animation, let's see, I went to the little guy here. If we were doing this, it's like, yay, rubbery little arms, but we're not doing that kind of animation. So let's go back here and adjust that articulator, make it tiny. So basically what we did with the torso, we don't have a curve deformer, so I was faking a curve deformer basically, and using making the articulator very, very large. But the smaller you make it, it can get very exact. So let's see, this is going to be BN. Oops, make sure. This is for RMB. Okay. Now, oh yeah, forgot to give it a hand. Let's give that hand in there. Now, I'm not actually adding any type of kinematic output for the hands because it's going to actually help blend in things. The cool part about this, I'm going to turn the hand on for a moment. Chris drew a couple of extra hands here. These are drawing substitutions, so you can still call on those at different times. And let's see, if I bend this little guy, it's pointing. You, right there. Okay, so let's kind of bring that back down. Looks good. All right, I'm going to unsolo those. Now, have all of those set up. Our timeline looks a little neater. If I'm right, I have a more efficient way of working is if you're setting up, when you're using your transform tool, you want to move a peg and not your artwork. Okay, so you would normally have this turned on in your preferences if you're using Harmony Premium, or you would actually do this on your different drawings. Let's see if I can show you this. Like normally in a layer property, I would have a little checkbox that says, hey, don't select the artwork. I only want you to select a peg. Now, we haven't even set up any pegs yet, but you don't see that here. So how the heck do you do that in Essentials? Well, I can come over here. I've got my transform tool. In the tool properties, I can say peg selection mode. So now with peg selection mode, if I try to, of course I'm saying this now, let's say, once I actually start adding some pegs here, you're not going to be able to see that little guy. So what I want to do, thank you, that's a little bit better. So as I'm selecting these now, it's finally doing what I was supposed to do. My computer had to catch up to me. You're not seeing those little lines around it because we're in peg selection mode. So for the torso, I'm going to add a peg. All right, just by clicking on the peg there. And the peg, of course, is going to need its pivot point set. So again, I'm going to go to my rotate tool, set the peg, legs, we'll set that as well. So let's set a peg there. All right, the other leg. Okay. And get our arms going. Why do I keep going up there? Add a peg. Great. And one last one. Wait, did I do that? Come here. Thank you. Okay, so we have those set up. Let's turn off our animate for a moment. All right, so we've done our nudging, we've done our bone deformation, and now for the fun part. We are going to place all of these little guys into a master peg. So I'm going to grab that top one here, click peg. I'm going to change this name to master. And the rest of these little guys, I'm going to drag under there. That looks a little weird. I'll put the torso back on top where it should be. Good. All right. So we now have a master peg set up. Typically, I don't attach arms or legs to the torso. I do the head usually, though. So what we're going to do now is set up, if I go to these other frames here, I'm going to set this up so it makes a little more sense. I'm going to get my transform tool, turn on my animate button, and let's expand this a little bit. So what I want to do is drop in a keyframe for all of these frames here. And I'll simply press F6. All right. And for the next little frame here, I'm going to press F6 again. All right. Now here, what I want to do is a couple of things. Our arm, this is our front arm, I believe. Yes, FP. So I'm going to do some nudging. This time I'm actually doing nudging with my animate button on. So I'm going to hold down my option key, press the down arrow once. All right, looks pretty good. I'm going to also move the arm over a little bit. All right, the back arm looks fine. Do want to scoot that back a bit. Okay. And this leg, where her body's kind of turned, so she looks a little weird. Well, here's a fun thing. I'm going to simply press the number 4 key, not Command 4, not Function key 4. Just simply pressing the number 4, and it's going to flip this horizontally. So I can kind of move that over. And I think I'm going to just simply move this other leg up a little bit and back. All right. So let's scroll this down. Great. So, not too bad. All right. So we're going to go to our last frame. Drop it in a keyframe, F6. All right. And again, we're going to adjust where the arms are. Going to move you back a little bit. And I think we're going to bring the foot forward a little more. And take this one, the back leg back. I'm just going to use my arrow keys so I don't get in too much trouble there. All right. So that makes a little more sense. Okay. Now, let's see. We are just about at our mark. I still want to leave room for time for some questions, but I do want to show you at least a little something. Let's say if we decided to go, I'm going to turn off my animate for a second. In the torso, knee bone connected to the head bone. All right, under the head, let's say, yes, back hair. Not actual back hair, but the back of her hair. Anyway, solo mode. Let's turn that off. I'm going to add one more little thingy here. Let's go to our rigging tool, and we'll go top, middle, bottom, and let's get a pretty big articulator there. All right. Let's see. What do I need to do? I think we're good. Let me expand that over. All right. So I think you're good. I'm going to leave you alone anyway. Hopefully it'll work. We'll see. Okay. So what I want to do here is I'm going to do a little trick. Would have liked to do something a little more elaborate, but in theory, I'm going to grab these little guys, hopefully, and move them out for a second. All right. Good. All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to do just a simple little animation here. It's not going to be awe-inspiring or anything, but nothing you want to put on your virtual refrigerator. Let's see. Did we never actually set... We did a master peg. We never set our pivot point for our master. Come here, dude. There. All right. So yeah, if it's a biped, usually your master, your peg is going to be right at the base here. All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to have my little character. Well, one, quit clicking on everything. We'll grab that here and we'll say, give us a little movement. So I'll bend her. Come here. Thank you. Matter of fact, let's do it even more simple. Yike. Did I not give the head its own peg? Hold on one second. No, you did not. Let's do this real quick. I need to give the head a peg, and that way we can move that as well. Thank you. All right, let's try that one more time. Okay. So here, I'm going to make the head kind of go like that. It's there. All right. And last but not least, double check one last little thing. Give the back a little peg there. And back here a little peg. All right. And give me thank you. All right, so she's going from there to there. I'm going to make her hair do something a little different. Thank you. Why do you keep moving? All right, once more. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to do a quick little command, K? And that should give me, heck, didn't want your body to turn. Let's do F6, F6. So let's try that once more. Command K. Technically, I think our hair should be going the opposite direction. Let's go this way. And maybe she goes back. Whoops, not you. And let's do F6 again. And I'm going to do this really, really ugly for now. Let's do Command K once more. So I'm just doing, the Command K is just doing a little tween. All right, now, I would actually tweak that a heck of a lot more, but I do want to show you this one particular thing. Typically, yes, we can drag our entire puppet in here to our library, but I want to show you, I'm going to bring in to my library, I've got right to modify. I want to grab these little keys here and drag this over to my library. And we'll call this a very ugly hair flip. Click OK. And Tony, what did you just do? I'll show you. I'm going to get rid of these keys. Let's, well, at least some of them. These little guys here, I'll simply press F7. All right. Got to get rid of that one too. Was that a distort? Anyway. So what can happen is I can drag this down, and if you look, this little orange thing is happening here. It's remembering the animation I just made. Okay. So imagine if that was something a little more complex, like maybe your character folds their arms. Not this character, because we didn't build it that way, but, or maybe they're normally shaking or like kind of walking in place, running, whatever it is, even something as simple as an eye blink. Imagine saving those um, in your library. So those are your action templates. So if you're going to be doing something over and over, you don't have to keep doing it over and over. All right. So that is a quick little rundown. I wish I could have animated more, but that's basically what we're working on. And we're going to be releasing on June 1st the course on creating simple little turnaround rigs in Harmony Essentials. So working with this character and a couple of other characters, and not only doing what I've shown you here, but doing like eye blinks and how would you rig them out? How would you work with symbols? You don't have things like art layers in Essentials. Premium does. But how do you work around that in Harmony Essentials? And this is pretty good for, again, if you're getting your feet wet, hobbyists, or small businesses, if you want to try this out uh, and just kind of see what Harmony Essentials can do. Let's see, one last thing. And if you go to this link, it's a bit.ly link, ESSRIG. Yes, caps are important. You can actually get this at a discount before it releases. Once it releases, it'll be at its normal price, but it is available right now for discount. Meanwhile, Desi, back to you.
Thanks. We don't have so much time for questions, but you covered a lot. You covered a lot of ground, and it's fantastic. The one question, we have a lot of questions, so we may not get to all of them, but the one question I have for you, Tony, is what's the biggest takeaway when you want to really just get started in animating in Harmony Essentials? What's the biggest takeaway in building a rig like this? Like, what is the one thing we should all know?
The one thing you should all know is, I would dare say, getting really comfortable with nudging, because whether you're using bones or even just parent-child rigging, um, the when I mean, because my background is I taught animation and Flash for years, and then when I moved into working with Toon Boom products, that's the one thing that I was like, oh my gosh, that one simple thing, it saves you so much time. Being able to say, well, I want this to be like, I want the face to parent um, the eyes, nose, and mouth, but okay, it's on a lower layer. You would have to break your neck, or just kind of, I don't know, reinvent the wheel and Flash to do that. And inside of Harmony products, it's just a simple little, oh, hold down your option key and press the down arrow or press the up arrow, and you can move things back and forth. That's, for me, that's, if you, once you understand that, whether you're using the bones or, again, the parent-child rigging, that is a major thing.
Right. That's a good segue into one of our questions from Jim Richardson. Hi, Jim. Nice to hear from you. Jim actually is in the States. He's also a teacher. So his question is, what does Command K do? What is the setting for a PC? Would you happen to know that?
Okay, Command K. It's pretty much, I'm in, and I apologize for not mentioning it. It's pretty much, it's having, I had my keyframes there, but because I set in my preferences to do stop motion keyframes, meaning I would drop a keyframe, and if I moved anything, by default, you'd automatically see like a little motion tween line there, and you'd see that little thing. Command K says, "Oh, don't make this. This is no longer a stop motion keyframe; it's a motion keyframe."
Mhm.
So it actually interpolates that. It would be Control K on PC, I believe.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, so here's a question that no one's ever really asked. Can Essentials use JavaScript?
Ooh.
So,
Yeah, yes, it can. And I know this, I do know this for a fact because I actually had to do the uh you can export um words. You can export for Unity from any version of Harmony. Um and part of that is JavaScript. Now, are all of the JavaScripts available? Like I think a lot of the newest ones that people are using with Harmony Premium, n- not all of those are available. I know I was chatting with Stylish Rumble about this, about seeing if we could reach out to one of the excuse me, reach out to one of the programmers that she knows is like, hey, can we get some of those for Essentials? I think in theory, don't quote me, in theory, the ones that are readily available, some work for Essentials, some don't. If you know JavaScript or know someone that knows JavaScript and says, hey, they can write it specifically for Essentials, that would be cool. Um, because it's the ones that are written for premium are targeting certain things that are just not in Essentials.
okay, that's
Okay.
interesting. Here's a question, and I don't know if this is because it's one of your preferences, but the person is asking, why is Tony moving pivot point via ROT tool and not the move tool?
Ooh, move tool would actually only make them. It's only a temporary pivot move. Hold on, let me double check. Let me do something real quick. That's a very good question. Okay, so right now I'm going to turn that off here. Um, I try not to make too many jabs toward Flash, but hear me out on this. So
Yeah,
right
keep
now,
it
you see where my pivot point is. Um, I can use this, but if I move this here, you can still see that pivot right there. It's basically saying this is temporary. Okay, so the reason I was bringing this up, I have that pivot point there. I'm going to do something really ridiculous for a second. Um, I'm going to move the entire character here. Okay, now pivot points in that one spot. This is again the beauty of this software. If I did this, like I changed my pivot point mid animation, it's like okay, we're cool with that. Um, I've done that in that other program, and things did not go well. So, uh, but yeah, it's like that's what that is. It's temporarily there. But if I want to permanently set up my and by the way, of course, if my animate tool is on and I go to rotate right now, it's going to be animating this little character turning, which is not what I'm trying to do. Turn off animate, and I have the ability to reset the pivot where it needs to be.
That's good that you're sort of going through that. We had someone just ask a question about that. He's saying I'm still kind of cloudy on the difference and the difference between animation pegs and pivot points. And this is a question that comes up a lot, and it's a really good one. Do how do animation pegs differ from pivot points?
Okay, animation pegs um, still have a pivot points, and I think if I'm understanding this, I'm going to try to reword this a little bit. Um, there is a drawing pivot, um, and I'm going to have to turn off my one of my preferences so you can see this a little bit better. I'm going to turn this off right now. Um, so let's see, mouse. Let's do this real quick. Solo the mouse, go there and turn that off. Thank you. All right. So there is a drawing pivot, like when you actually just have a drawing. This is not a peg. So this actually has a pivot point, and a peg also has a pivot point. Um, there's always been this big debate in almost every professional animator I know. We're all the other Toon Boom animators. We actually recently had a webinar talking about this: to peg or not to peg. Um, the bottom line is you can build a rig and you can add bones and do all those things without ever using a peg. Maybe just use a master peg, but you can just do it with the artwork. The problem is it's not very efficient if you need to actually change something later. So um, pegs, or excuse me, or the pivot points that are actually in drawings as well as pegs, um, but it just takes a little. It does take a little bit of getting used to because I know for me, for years, I never used pegs. I would maybe use one to control everything, but um, you can still just use the uh, or it's just use the art and just add bones or something like that, or just use parent-child rigging without having to use a peg at all. I'm hoping I'm answering that correctly. Because it's not a simple way. And pardon the plug towards Toon Boom's site. I know recently, within the last 2 years, when you guys rebuilt the site, it's incredible. If you go to learn.toonboom.com, um,
Thank you.
you can actually go in there and just type in. It's like a university of all these different professors teaching like stuff. So if you typed in stuff like that, and if you said, hey, by the way, I'm looking for this in essentials, or looking for this in premium, if you type in information about pegs, it actually helps. um, Last point on that, and this is something I teach whenever I'm training. um, there's plenty of software that's out there when you try to go, I don't understand blah, and you go to the help and it's something ridiculous. It'll be like, here's a cartoon balloon that says, yes, this is the selection key. And I'm like, no, I need more help than that. Um, Again, it sounds like I'm trying to blow smoke, but I'm being serious here. Um, on any Toon Boom product, under help, you have two different things. If you say getting started, this would actually launch whatever version you're in. This is the PDF that's actually on your local machine. You can print it out and everything. It's great. Um, so there's information here. It's only 131 pages. I almost never use this, but it is pretty cool. Where I go help, and this is if you're connected online, of course. Online help says, hey, you're actually in Harmony 15 Essentials. Okay.
Right.
So even if I was on Harmony 12, because I had to, if you notice, I keep several versions on my one computer. So it'll
Yeah.
launch into that. So I can go in here and type in pegs. I refer to this as the encyclopedia because it is like, oh, adding pegs. You mean adding the master peg? What about pegs? It's really awesome. So
Um, I have to say we're out of time, and I'm really sorry because there are tons of questions we didn't get to. But you guys can email us at webinars@toonboom.com or reach out to Tony. He's all over social media, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind answering your questions. He's a great Toon Boom ambassador. We love having him be part of the team, even though he's far away from our Montreal office. But please keep in mind, this was just an introductory level to what you can do in Harmony, and also, the possibilities are limitless in Harmony Premium, and when it comes to rigging. So keep in mind, again, this is just scratching the surface, really an introductory level webinar for that. We are going to have a lot more webinars coming up. We have one a week for the next few weeks. So visit us at toonboom.com/webinars to sign up for some more, maybe related more to your expertise as well. We mentioned Stylist Rumble. Her real name is Tracy. Tracy will be with us next week doing a webinar as well. So again, visit our website, check us out on social media, and go to the Learn portal and Tony's websites. He's got his link up there for you guys to look at. And, send us your feedback. If you have any questions or need more information, that's what we're here for. We build a community, and, we're all part of, one big happy And, you know, we're here to support each other. So if there's anything, just let us know. Tony, you were fantastic as always.
Thank you.
And that's it for us, I think.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.